My ex's twisted priorities destroyed our family, a revenge story. The day my ex cheated on me, shattering our marriage, felt like the end of the world. I'm 33, with 2 kids, and never imagined my life would unravel like this. Despite the excruciating pain of his infidelity with a mom from our youngest son's school group, I stubbornly agreed to shared custody, clinging to the hope that my kids deserved to have their father in their lives, no matter how much he'd hurt me. But the reality was a brutal slap in the face. Since the divorce, he's morphed into a ghost, only materializing for the bare minimum, picking them up for visits. He's a master of spur-of-the-moment plans that conveniently exclude my kids. And after a while, the constant pleading drained out of me. I stopped pushing, but a simmering resentment has always boiled beneath the surface. The unfairness of his emotional absence a constant ache in my heart. Then came the computer. Recently, I decided to upgrade my older son's computer, and he innocently asked if we could give his old one to his cousin. My brother, a veritable saint, has been a rock for my kids. He's always there, stepping in for school events when I can't, whisking them away to the park or on little adventures when I'm drowning in work. My ex, on the other hand, is perpetually unavailable. Anytime I've dared to ask him to help with even the simplest activity, a litany of excuses spews forth out of town, swamped with work. Ironically, though, when his stepkids need something, he's a superhero, rushing to their rescue. He once even had the audacity to argue with one of their fathers at a school event, puffed up with self-importance, insisting he had the right to be there. So, when my ex found out I gifted the computer to my nephew, all hell broke loose. He launched into a tirade, complaining that if I had money to spare on a gift like that, I should have forgiven 2 months of child support he'd conveniently forgotten due to his tight finances with the new baby. He then had the nerve to suggest that if I was going to give away a computer, I should have bestowed it upon his kids or, even better, his stepkids, who apparently share a single, prehistoric computer between the 3 of them. My blood ran cold. I told him, with icy precision, that my finances were none of his damn business and that I owed absolutely nothing to his stepchildren. That's when his wife, the woman who helped decimate my family, decided to jump into the fray. She launched into a venomous attack, accusing me of spoiling my son by giving him a new computer and being petty for letting my son bring it to their house, claiming it was all some elaborate power play to show off in front of his step-siblings. The audacity. I ripped into her, telling her she had no right to speak to me that way or question my parenting decisions. I reminded her that I allowed my kids to see their father so they could grow up with him, not so she could interfere with how I chose to raise my children. My ex, of course, was offended, but I retorted that this entire charade could have been avoided if his wife had simply kept her nose out of where it didn't belong. A fragile truce settled in. Until last week, I went to pick up the kids, and my ex was visibly simmering, his face a mask of repressed anger. He launched into a pitiful story about how he'd tried to read a bedtime story to our youngest, who, at home, still enjoys being read to before bed by me, his brother, or even my brother. Apparently, my ex, in a rare moment of paternal initiative, offered to read to him, but our son coldly turned him down, saying he didn't need him for that because he could do it himself. My ex, apparently stung, lingered to listen as my son searched for a story for 8-year-olds without a dad on his tablet. The knife twisted deeper. The next day, the wound festered further. My ex offered to take our older son to basketball, only to be met with the reply that he was already going with his dad, who he quickly corrected to uncle. That was it. The dam broke. My ex exploded. And when I arrived to pick up the kids, he confronted me, his voice laced with accusations. I snapped. I told him that if our kids felt like they didn't have a father, he had only himself to blame. He tried to deflect, spewing accusations that I was the one pushing him away from his role. I countered with the cold, hard truth: it's up to him to show up for his kids, not something I can force him to do. I reminded him that he was the one who shattered our family with his infidelity, and he has consistently chosen to be more involved with his stepkids than with his own children. I didn't mince words. The kids are growing up, and they're starting to see the reality of who he is, or rather, who he isn't as a father. If he continues down this path, He can't expect anything from them in the future. After that explosive exchange, his mother, the woman who had always been superficially polite to me, called. But this time, the gloves were off. My own simmering rage bubbled to the surface, and I told her I would have appreciated the same level of concern from her when she was actively supporting her son's affair. Fully aware that her grandchildren were losing their father in the process, she slammed the phone down. And we haven't spoken since. My brother, the voice of reason, told me that I had every right to express my feelings, but suggested that perhaps this particular discussion shouldn't have taken place in front of the kids. Later, my ex texted me, whining that if I weren't so difficult, he'd spend more time with them. I fired back that his duty as a father doesn't depend on whether I'm easier or not, and he damn well knows I've never prevented him from seeing the kids. The truth is, when it comes down to a choice, he consistently chooses outings with his stepkids over spending time with his own children. And that's something only he can change. I feel like I'm constantly fighting a losing battle. I can only do so much, and I'm not letting him off the hook for a penny of that child support. The fact that it's stretching his budget is his problem, not mine. I do agree with my brother that conversation shouldn't have happened in front of the kids. But if I understand correctly, my ex chose the time and place, not giving me much choice in the matter. So tell me, Reddit, am I the A for saying they're justified and feeling father? Update 1. Wow. I'm honestly blown away by the response. I didn't expect so much support. To answer the comments, I will give an update. My ex sent me a barrage of messages, suddenly eager to resolve things, to stop arguing and talk like adults. I hesitantly agreed. He showed up at my house, and we dove straight into the heart of the matter. No more beating around the bush. He asked me, his voice laced with vulnerability, if I really thought he was a bad father. The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of years of disappointment. Looking back now, I replied with brutal honesty, I never would have chosen him to be the father of my children. I could see that hit him like a ton of bricks, but I was done sugarcoating things. He mumbled that it wasn't easy for him, and I shot back that it hadn't exactly been a picnic for me either, as I'd been forced to shoulder both his role and mine. He then tried to pull the heartstring card, claiming he couldn't abandon his stepchildren, couldn't leave them without a father, because he had already broken their family once before. The hypocrisy was staggering. I coldly reminded him that he had, in fact, left his own children without a father. Then came the tears. He started crying, a pathetic display that didn't move me in the slightest. He whimpered that it was all my fault, that when the infidelity happened, I'd refuse to forgive him or go to couples therapy. I stared at him, unmoved. He spoke as if this was supposed to be lies. He then, with a hint of desperation, asked if, given his current state, I didn't feel sorry for him. I looked him dead in the eye and said, no. He recoiled, wounded, declaring that he didn't think I could be so cruel. I reminded him of all the times I changed jobs, pulled my kids out of school 2 months before the end of the term, moved houses, and watched him disappoint our kids over and over again. The empathy I once held was turned into apathy. He stormed out, defeated. Not long after his mother called. She said that she knew what I had told her son and that he hadn't stopped crying. She asked if I could carry so much hatred to hurt her son like that. I told her with all due respect, what I said wasn't out of hatred but out of the truth. If your son is crying, it's because he's finally facing the consequences of his actions, and that she should have taught him to take responsibility and treat people with respect. She then stated I didn't know what it was like to feel a mother's love and see a child suffer. And I stated I understand because I have 2 children who cry over a living father. His mom said that he was sorry, and I told her not to put words in his mouth. I asked that she stop calling me about anything related to her son and hung up. I wanted to cry so badly, but I'm a damned mother, and I don't have time for that. I need my kids to feel safe, loved, and strong enough not to need anyone, not even me. Last Thursday, I took my kids to their cousin's birthday party, hosted by my ex-sister-in-law. I still have a good relationship with her. She was the one who told me about the infidelity and that her mother was already encouraging it. My ex showed up alone, looking defeated. My kids kept their distance from him. They kissed his hand, but then pointedly ignored him. My ex's mother scolded the kids, telling them they should show more respect to their father. My eldest, with a maturity beyond his years, retorted that he doesn't show respect for me. My ex and I scolded my son not for what he said but for how he addressed his grandmother. And I asked him to gather his things. I said to her that to be good parents, you need to be good people. My ex was getting agitated at the comment. My ex-mother-in-law asked why we couldn't have a civilized co-parenting relationship. And I told her everything I've mentioned here about his free will to see the kids and how the second custody agreement isn't working since he only sees them some weekends. My ex said he had too many kids at home to speak on the matter. The former mother-in-law said that the only kids who should feel comfortable were his own, and the comforts of the others should be provided by their biological circle. My ex wanted to end the conversation because his mother was scolding him for being a careless father, and stated it was my fault he's this way. I told him you can see the kids whenever you want. I asked what more he wants. He started yelling, claiming I was only being petty because I didn't really need the money since I earned more than him and had fewer kids. I told him I wouldn't continue the conversation and that I'd show him what being uncivilized looks like by filing for the overdue child support payment. His mother asked what I meant by overdue payment. I explained that he was 3 months behind, and she was furious. I explained he couldn't let my son's step-brother be at a disadvantage at the same school. The step-brother is 8, the same age as my son. I left. The next day his mother showed up at my place and delivered 3 months' worth of child support in cash. To give context, my ex's mom doesn't work, so if she uses her savings, then my ex won't get as much when she passes. My ex, in retaliation, didn't pick up the kids this weekend. I received a call from my former sister-in-law explaining my ex's 15-year-old stepson punched him in the mouth. She said she will give more details when she learns more. Now the custody agreement will likely be finalized next year. According to the court, the payments are the priority. Am I still the A? Update 2. As I mentioned last time, the stepson punched him. I now know more details. The ex's stepson was planning to go bowling with his friends but was told he couldn't go because he needed to watch his younger siblings. This led to an argument. The boy raised his voice at his mother, which made the ex step in and demanded he respects his mother. The boy replied that he isn't his father. The ex said as long as he lives under his roof, he has to follow his rules. The boy ignored him, which made the ex touch his shoulder. At this point, the boy punched him. The mother scolded the boy. The mom and ex told my former mother-in-law so she could watch the kids. The ex's mom said she wouldn't. The ex told me that the stepson's biological father is now turning him against him, which led to him not being able to pick up my kids. The boy is now staying with his father. The ex didn't make another child payment, which made the ex's mom pay the owed amount. As stated, the child is 8. I enrolled my son into the school because I was working as a kindergarten teacher. I transferred them so there wouldn't be rumors. Update 3. Baby name trauma. So we had an intervention on Ray Farty. I know everyone said to send a link to the original post to my sister to show her that 103% of the global population, and that would be the easiest thing to do. But some commenters said some pretty gnarly things about my sister that she doesn't need to read and feel worse about. But I wanted to address a few things that came up. First, for those saying I shouldn't bother paying for the baby shower anymore, I had no plans to not continue to pay and help. Disagreements in fighting aside, I love my sister and want her to go into motherhood filled with love and support regardless of whether she wants. Second, my sister's husband was made aware of the spelling change of Rafferty to Ray Farty about a month before my original post. He said he didn't think much of it until he saw it written down and immediately saw it as Ray Farty too. He said her emotions had been getting worse throughout the pregnancy and he didn't know how to approach her about going back to the original spelling. He had hoped that once she gave birth all the hormones would somehow leave her body. Third, a lot of you were lumping my mom in with my sister and said some pretty horrible things about her too. All my mom knew was from my sister calling her to complain that I laughed at her changing the spelling. My mom just assumed it was a minor change like Rafferty until I told her to grab a pen and paper and I'd spell it out for her. Now for those of you who told me I didn't have any tact and my reaction was mean. My reaction was because 1. Her entire life for the sake of my sister being quirky. 2. Pregnancy brain aside. Surely my sister would realize her child will be called Ray Farty once it's pointed out. Have a change your mind and this will end up being a funny story to tell at her daughter's future wedding or something. And 3. My sister is a bit of a joker. So I also initially thought she was just pulling a prank or joking. But if she was joking, she took the joke really. Really. She spent $400 on a mural painted on one wall in the nursery. She wanted to debut the finished nursery to everyone at the baby shower, including her husband, who was forbidden to see it beforehand, incorporated into it that now needs to be repainted. She also bought herself a birthing gift. Is this even a thing? Should have my brother-in-law present to her in front of everyone at the hospital. A $900 plus gold bracelet with Rafe Play Artie and Y Char. The baby book also has Ray Farty embroidered on the cover. I contacted my sister's best friend Kot, not her real name. If my sister has told her anything about the spelling, she found out about Ray Farty after the blow-up with my sister. As my sister wanted to get Katie on her, Katie Huza was equally horrified about the spelling and told me this is the worst. What's the temp at a creative name she's ever seen? The intervention of sort. The Farty Party, if you will, included me, my sister, her husband, his mother and father, my mother, and Katie. My sister refused to believe anyone could possibly see Ray Farty as Ray Farty and that we were just mad that she was taking creative license. My sister said children are not that cruel to bully her daughter for her name, and Katie said plenty of kids are cruel enough and the others would join in so they're not singled out themselves. My sister countered that as long as all the adults are pronouncing it correctly that it'll be no problem, and Katie told her that not only would the adults not know how to pronounce it to begin with. I was happy Katie was there because she shared interesting names her students have had over the past few years. So I knew her opinion on this. This would probably be the only one to swear. My sister cried for about 10 minutes and finally agreed to entirely change the name because even Rafferty was tainted because we had Play all ruined it for. We told her to take her time to consider a new name. She told us she still wanted to honor my mother and she suggested she'd combine my mother's first name with her mother-in-law's name and created say the name on the spot that included a cross term for a lesbian. When my mother pointed that out, she started crying again and accused us of not letting her be a mom, and her husband suggested we leave it for now and we should all go and give her space. It's been radio silence until my sister texted me a couple of hours ago that she and her husband landed on Theodora and she is absolutely in love with. She even decided that my unborn niece looks like Theodora in the ultrasound. She got those creepy 3D ones done where every baby looks like the same. For potato. I replied that that was lovely and that I'm so happy she's happy. It's not my taste. But at least it's not the Odoru or some crap like that. So there you go. My niece has been saved from being called Ray Farty. I'm invited to the baby shower again, and I know this is just a little blip with my relationship to my sister and will be fine. But Katie will be taking over as God, which is fine by me. I can always be godmother to their next child, who will probably be named something like Tiramisu. Thank you all for seeing the same thing I did and letting me know stopping Ray Farty from coming into existence was the right thing to do. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. Closing request. So, Reddit, after hearing everything, do you think I handled this situation correctly? Was I too harsh? Could I have done anything differently to protect my kids, stand up for myself, and navigate this minefield of a relationship with my ex and his family? I'm genuinely interested in your perspectives. So please share your thoughts and opinions. Vertielt man mich davor, dass ich sage, es sind gerechtfertigt und dass ich mich als Vaterfool. I hope these edits give your story the impact you're looking for. Let me know if you need further adjustments.